A rebuttal to former Minister Sinanan. Accountability dodge. Problems ignored, an editorial by Professor Wall Street. Former Minister of Works and Transport Rohan Sinanan's recent statement defending his stewardship of the Unemployment Relief Program, URP, represents a masterclass in political deflection and institutional gaslighting. Rather than addressing the serious allegations of ghost gangs, violence, and systemic corruption that plagued URP under his watch, Sinanan has chosen to engage in historical revisionism and blame shifting that insults the intelligence of the Trinidad and Tobago public. His statement reveals not reform and responsibility, but a concerning pattern of evasion and denial that demands a thorough response. Here are 10 reasons why Minister Sinanan is being deceitful and disingenuous. 1. Deflecting blame to previous administration. Sinanan's primary strategy is to blame the PP government, 2010 to 2015, for problems that persisted and arguably worsened under PNM leadership from 2015 to 2025. After nearly a decade in power, claiming that current issues stem from the previous administration is intellectually dishonest. The PNM had ample time to implement meaningful reforms, yet ghost gangs and corruption remained endemic throughout Sinanan's tenure. 2. Completely ignoring ghost gang evidence. The most glaring omission in Sinanan's statement is his failure to directly address the substantial evidence of ghost gangs operating within URP. Recent investigations have revealed systematic phantom employment, where gang members collected salaries without performing work. Sinanan mentions rogue elements in passing, but refuses to acknowledge the scale and systematic nature of ghost gang infiltration that occurred under his direct oversight. 3. Misrepresenting spending reductions as success. Sinanan proudly cites reduced spending from $725 million to $282 million as evidence of fiscal responsibility, but conveniently ignores that this reduction coincided with increased ghost gang activity and reduced actual work output. Lower spending means nothing if significant portions went to phantom employees while legitimate infrastructure needs went unmet. This is accounting sleight of hand, not genuine reform. 4. Fabricating reform narratives around violence. While acknowledging that violence and killings were linked to the program, Sinanan provides no concrete evidence that his supposed reforms actually reduced gang violence within URP. The continued presence of ghost gangs suggests that violence and intimidation remain tools for program manipulation throughout his tenure. His vague references to concerted steps lack specificity and credibility. 5. Obfuscating interview process effectiveness. Sinanan touts the implementation of formal interview processes as evidence of reform, but fails to explain how ghost gangs continue to operate if these processes were genuinely effective. The persistence of phantom employment suggests that either the interview process was compromised from within, or it was a cosmetic reform that failed to address the real mechanisms of gang infiltration. 6. Cherry-picking statistical comparisons. The comparison between 1,267 contracted projects in 2015 versus 2,800 in-house projects in 2024 is misleading without context about project scope, quality, and actual completion rates. More projects on paper mean nothing if significant numbers were phantom projects designed to justify ghost gang employment. This statistical manipulation obscures rather than illuminates URP's actual performance. 7. Minimizing audit findings and investigations. Sinanan welcomes investigations while simultaneously downplaying their significance, suggesting problems were isolated rather than systemic. This contradicts mounting evidence of widespread corruption and ghost gang activity. His casual dismissal of rogue elements belies the institutional nature of URP's problems and his responsibility as the supervising minister. 8. False equivalency between eras. By constantly referencing the 2000 to 2015 period, Sinanan creates false equivalency between different administrations' handling of URP problems. This deflection ignores that the PNM created URP in its current form and had primary responsibility for its institutional design and oversight mechanisms. The party that designed the system cannot credibly blame others for its fundamental flaws. 9. Overstating infrastructure achievements. Sinanan's claims about infrastructure improvements lack independent verification and ignore reports that many URP projects were either incomplete, substandard, or entirely phantom. Without transparent auditing of actual project completion and quality, his infrastructure claims amount to unsupported political rhetoric designed to distract from corruption allegations. 10. Institutional gaslighting of corruption concerns. Perhaps most disturbingly, Sinanan's statement engages in institutional gaslighting by suggesting that documented corruption concerns are uninformed statements while providing no substantive response to specific allegations. This dismissive approach to legitimate accountability questions represents a fundamental failure of democratic responsibility and transparency. The real issues Sinanan refuses to address: ghost gang infiltration. Credible reports indicate that organized criminal elements systematically infiltrated URP, creating phantom employment schemes where gang members collected government salaries without performing work. This represents not isolated corruption, but systematic theft of public resources facilitated by institutional failures under Sinanan's oversight. Violence and intimidation. The connection between URP and violence extends beyond historical references to active intimidation of legitimate workers and communities. Gang control over URP positions created parallel power structures that undermined state authority and endangered public safety throughout Sinanan's tenure. Accountability vacuum. Sinanan's statement reveals a troubling absence of institutional accountability mechanisms. His casual acknowledgement of rogue elements without consequences suggests systematic failure to prosecute corruption or reform institutional practices that enable ongoing abuse. Democratic accountability demands more. The people of Trinidad and Tobago deserve more than deflection and historical revisionism from former government ministers. Sinanan's statement represents everything wrong with political accountability in our democracy: blame shifting, evidence dodging, and institutional gaslighting that treats serious corruption allegations as political inconveniences rather than threats to democratic governance. True democratic accountability requires former ministers to acknowledge institutional failures under their direct oversight, provide substantive responses to specific corruption allegations, accept responsibility for systemic problems that persisted during their tenure, support transparent investigations without political interference, commit to institutional reforms that prevent future abuse. In conclusion, Minister Sinanan's statement confirms rather than refutes
concerns about URP's management under PNM leadership, his refusal to directly address ghost gang evidence, his deflection of responsibility to previous administrations, and his minimization of documented corruption represent a fundamental failure of democratic accountability. The Trinidad and Tobago public deserves better than political theater masquerading as institutional defense. They deserve honest acknowledgement of URP's failures, transparent investigation of corruption allegations, and genuine commitment to reforms that prevent future abuse of public resources.
Sinanan's evasive statement makes clear why comprehensive investigation of URP operations is not just warranted, but essential for restoring public trust in government institutions. The former minister's deflection and denial only underscore the urgent need for accountability that his statement so studiously avoids.